So second row, right there.
Yeah, I'd like to know where you see the virtual camera technology going over the next 5 or 10 years, and where as a director would you like to see it go?
I think it's going where we'd like it to go, because we're kind of pushing it, we're all pushing it in that direction, which is the closer that what we experience in real time is to what the final image will be, the better. So it'll be better lighting, it'll be interactive effects like shadowing, and volumetrics, special effects like fire, smoke, and all of these sorts of things improving, so that our real-time interface starts to look more and more like the finished shot.
So if you look what you saw with Joe Lettieri and Steve Rosenbaum today, you take a timeline. Maybe on this film we brought it to here in the timeline and delivered it. The further in that timeline we can deliver to them, the more they can use the areas that we can't do and their expertise in a shorter period of time to raise it even to a higher level.
Yeah, for example, we have our own lighting system in Motion Builder, and we can only approximate very crudely, and we only have 8 lights. They have an infinite number of lights, and they can light the way the sun really lights and the way the sky really lights. The closer we can come to their lighting tools, we can actually place lights, and then they can use those lights later. Now, they can always expand beyond that, but if we've roughed in the look, and probably what'll mean is that the people who are finishing the shots at Weta, some of them will migrate and take up positions within our group so that it becomes a continuum, as opposed to right now. We do it, we finish it, we deliver it, they start. They relay everything out, mapping it exactly to where it is in our virtual world, but with high-resolution assets. So it's a 2-part process. So we're trying to make it a continuous process.
Is there any thought to giving the actors the ability to see some of the same things you can see through that virtual frame? So, for example, they can see the creature that they're reacting to.
Yeah, we try to do that, but the thing we experiment practically one of our first day of testing. A test was, what happens if the actors are wearing VR goggles and they can go through the space? It turned out to be more trouble than it was worth, and you can't capture their facial performance while they're wearing VR goggles. So, and they can't see anything, they can't see each other, they can only see so they can't see the emotive part of the other character, they can only see the kind of gross anatomy differences, the fact that they're blue and so on, and that turns out to be much less important for the actors. So we actually looked at that and dismissed it early on. So that's not something that you'd see coming up. What we do is we'll do whatever we can in the moment to create a sense of the spatial positioning of things, and then the actors walk over to the monitor and they see what it looks like. Okay,
we have monitors everywhere. We had 1 today. On our stage we had 10.
Yeah, you can't look anywhere around the stage without seeing a monitor.
My question is to Mr. Cameron. Do you have a dream right now which cannot come true because of this level of technical progress which we have nowadays? What technologies and opportunities you, as a director, as an artist, you dream of right now? Because this was one of the reasons why you didn't make Avatar many years ago.
I dream of a world in which we evolve to respect nature enough to stop doing things like offshore drilling and digging up the tar sands and all sorts of stuff like that. That's where my dreams are, and those feel a lot more impossible than the stuff that we're doing on Avatar, and require a lot of work on everybody's part. In terms of the movies, I think anything we can imagine, we go after it, and eventually we'll get there. I can imagine a smaller, lighter, more fully integrated, man-portable and single-user 3D camera that doesn't have technicians and other things. I can imagine a virtual camera that shows me a photoreal image in real time. I can imagine all these things, and we'll get there. And maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. But I think right now we're at a kind of interesting juncture in cinema history where if you can imagine it, you can do it. I sort of said that, 5 or 10 years ago, but it was kind of bluff. When I was the CEO of Digital Domain, I'd stand up in front of groups and say, if you can imagine it, you can do it. But it was sort of not true. There were still barriers. There were still thresholds. And the final barrier, I believe, is photoreal, human, empathetic performance. And we did that. So we're there. So pretty much whatever you can imagine you can do. Now you got to figure out how to make it cheaper. So all of our focus right now is how do we make our process more efficient, more intuitive, more filmmaker-friendly, more actor-friendly, and cheaper.
Are you really building a submarine right now to dive into deepest?
Yeah, we are.
You're going to use this footage in sequels?
I don't care if there's any footage. I'm just going. everything's not about filmmaking. You know, going to the deepest place in the world's oceans, 36,000 feet down, that ain't about making a film. That's about the engineering required to do something like that. I have a great team of engineers that are working in Sydney right now, building the vehicle. Later next year.
So I just want to go back to what you were asking about the actors and their experience. Something we really didn't talk about today, and to give them a sense of what it was like to be in the jungle, we went to Hawaii, and we actually rehearsed scenes in advance of them ever coming into the performance capture bond. And this is a part of the documentary. We show that. So they went into the rainforest, and they saw what it was like to go through the bush, and they actually rehearsed scenes, and Jim photographed scenes, and Sam tells a very funny story. On our third day up in the rainforest, Jim was over to the right with a little handy cam filming Sam, and Sam, we had him dressed up in a loincloth and a wig and a plastic bow.
You gotta visualize, Sam was like pale white. He was like fish billy white, running around in his underwear. I was standing over there with a camcorder about this big, and some guy asked what we're doing, and Sam says, "I see that guy over there? He directed Titanic." And the guy looks at me, looks at him in his underwear, and says, "He's really come down, hasn't he?"
I wanted to ask a question. A story broke recently that Sigourney Weaver said Grace actually didn't die at the end of Avatar, and that she would be back in the sequels.
Who said she died?
Well, so I was wondering, could you comment on that? So she didn't die.
Nobody dies in a science fiction movie. Whether Grace lives or dies depends probably more on Sigourney's agent than anything.
In Tron, they're making Jeff Bridges 30 years younger, like the real good-looking Jeff. Is that the next step for Hollywood?
Let's make it clear. I think what we have to be clear on here, it's Jeff Bridges playing Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
not Jeff Bridges playing Charlton Heston or somebody else. So I think what we're saying is an actor is an actor. You can't have somebody else do Marilyn Monroe. It's like you see in the clips. CGI is a 21st century version of prosthetics.